Hi, I'm Ben McCall, the Weekend Welder. Campfire cooking can be as simple as a hot dog on a skewer, but if you don't have the right gear, even this can be no fun. If you're doing a more complicated meal, having the right equipment becomes more important. For our basic outdoor cooking set, we have some sturdy skewers, we have a cast iron pot hung over the fire on a tripod, and we've got a couple of Dutch ovens. To make working with the Dutch ovens easier, we've made some lifting and holding devices. Let's go to the shop, we'll show you how we made these items, and when we come back, we'll show you what we've got cooking.
We're going to start with the really easy task, the skewer. We showed you in the field how difficult it can be to cook with a lightweight skewer and why it's important to have some good ones like this. It's really a very simple project. All we've got is a wooden file handle and an 18-inch piece of 1/8 inch round. We're going to sharpen one end on our sander and clean up the other end. To complete this, all we're going to do is take some adhesive caulk, squirt it into the hole in the file handle, slide the handle on, make sure we've got it on good, and then set it aside to dry. That's one project down. With all of the projects that we're doing today, we're going to be doing quite a bit of bending. To do that, we've got our bending post inserted into our floor flange to give us a good deal of leverage. To make our bending post, we started off with a 42-inch piece of 2-inch Schedule 40 pipe inserted into our floor flange. We then took a piece of 1/4-inch flat, marked the center of it, and then cut an opening for a piece of 1 1/4 square tube. We then cut out a piece 3-inch by 3-inch and welded the square tube into the hole. This allows us to take another piece of 1/4-inch flat with a piece of 1-inch tube welded to the bottom of it and inserted into our bending post. We can then get quite a bit of torque to enable us to bend heavier pieces of steel. For these particular projects, we've made a customized jig to allow us to do the types of bends that we want to do. Just like the other piece, it fits right down in here. To make our bending jig, we've welded some pieces of 1/2-inch square onto the top of our 1/4-inch plate and also a piece of 3/4-inch pipe.
When you're cooking with a Dutch oven, it's important to rotate your oven every once in a while to keep your meal cooking evenly. I'm going to show you how to make this lifting hook to help you do just that.
The next thing we want to look at is a way to pick up our Dutch oven. Normally we'll be doing this with a pair of welding gloves on to protect our hands, but there are going to be times when the fire is fairly high and you want to be able to extend your reach a little bit to be able to pick this thing up. We're using 3/8-inch round for this particular piece, and we'll show you how we did some of the bends. Our total piece is 18 inches long. We're going to start with the round bend, and we're simply going to line it up with this piece of square and push it on around. You'll notice that most of the time when I'm doing heavier bending, I'm going to wear my welding gloves. Just gives a little bit more padding for my hands. We've got a piece of 1/2-inch square tube that we're going to use for our bender. Just slide it over the 3/8, leave a little bit of space, and then I'll keep moving my bender down a little bit as the bend progresses. That gives us our hook. Next, we'll turn our jig around, put it between the two pieces of square tube, slide our hollow piece down, and bend it right back. All we really need to do now is weld on our cross piece. As I said, this cross piece allows you to get a much better grip so that you can pick up that pot and control it when you're carrying it around. The next thing that we want to do is make something to help us lift the lids on our Dutch ovens. Same situation with the pots. These are going to get very hot and be down in the fire. You could use this hook, but sometimes it can be very difficult to get down low enough to get this hook to catch. So what we want to do is make a lifter with a longer handle on it so we can grab hold of it from a little bit further away. We're going to start by putting a very slight bend down in here. After that, we're going to be able to pick it up. Our problem is going to be that the lid is going to have a little bit of a tendency to waggle side to side. To take care of that, we're going to add a cross piece like we did before, but we're going to bend this one down so that it touches the oven lid on both sides. Once again, we're going to use our wire feed welder to put this piece on. Now we need to bend down the ends of each of these. Now we can lift our lid and control it. The next thing that we want to do is add a cross piece up here to give us the same stability that we had with our first piece. Okay, now we can pick up our Dutch oven lid and move it wherever we want to with great ease.
When it's time to check on what you've got cooking or to serve, the last thing you want to do is put your lid down in the dirt. I'll show you how to make this lid rack. When you lift off the lid to check what you're cooking or to work on it, you need some place to put this down other than on the ground. So the next thing we're going to make is a lid rack. Once again, we're using 3/8 inch round for this project. This piece is 29 inches long, and we're going to mark it 10 inches in from each end. We'll use these marks to make a couple of square bends, and then we'll reverse the jig and make a couple of round bends. We just line the mark up with the edge of the jig
and then pull it straight around. Now when we reverse it, we want to make sure that this leg is nice and flat, so I've got it braced up against the other side of the jig. And then make the same bend. Now we're going to reverse our jig, insert the piece in there, and then we're going to make a couple of round bends. I said it's best if you start to make your bend and then slowly move your bending piece around so that you get a nice circular bend and don't get any deformities in it. You can always straighten up and correct a little bit later on. We're a little bit out of square, and for that a small pipe wrench is a good tool to have around. I can just sight down this, rip the part that's a little bit out of alignment, and move it back over where I want it. Earlier I made another piece just like this one and then cut it into two pieces. We're going to weld these together to finish off our lid holder. So there's our lid holder. Like we showed you out at the campsite, you can use this for holding a hot lid when you're cooking in the Dutch oven, or you can flip your lid over and use it as a griddle. So far, all of our campfire cooking projects have been pretty easy. We've gotten some nice smooth bends out of our 3/8 inch round, but now we're going to use some 1/2 inch round, which is harder to bend. This is going to be the tripod to work over our campfire with. We've got our pieces pre-cut. This first one is 6 foot 6 inches long, and I'm going to mark down on it 7 inches for our first bend. This piece will be the main piece, and the other two legs will hook onto it, as well as our S-hook to hold our chain. We've got a larger pipe to help us with our bending, and we'll get started by doing the square. There! That bend took just a little bit more oomph than our earlier ones. This time we're going to go to the outside of our pipe to try and do our round bend. And actually it's going to be a little bit easier on me if I turn this back around. And try and pull through. Just like before, it's important to do your bends in small increments and then slide your holder out as you do so. All right, that's starting to get away from me a little bit, so I'm going to put a clamp on it to help me hold it in place. There, that should work a little bit easier. I'm just going to keep bending this around until I've got an almost closed loop. I've left this bent up so that I'll be able to slide my other pieces in there, and I'll use a sledgehammer to pound it back out. The other two legs of our tripod don't need quite as big of a bend in them, so we're going to turn our jig a little bit and bend them a slightly different way. We're going to run our rod down onto our round, set it into our jig like that, and then push it on around. As I said, this 1/2 inch round is much harder to bend than the 3/8, and that took quite a bit of effort. Again, I'll take my sledgehammer and flatten this out to close the loop. Well, we've got our eyelets all beat into place and our tripod's ready to put in use. Once you get it where you want it, they'll have a tendency to twist around and kind of find their own little spot. Once they've done that, I'm going to take this piece of wire and wrap it around them to hold them in place. When we take our tripod down for storage, we wrap this same wire around the bottom of the legs to keep them from clanking around too much. We've bent an S out of some 5/16 round, and we'll get that in place and then hang a piece of change from it that we'll use to hold our pots. Our last project is something we didn't show you out at the campsite. To make them, we've got a 10-inch piece of 1/8 inch round and an 18-inch piece of 3/8 inch round. I want to do a little bit tighter bend than what we've been doing on our other pieces, so I've got a piece of 1/2 inch pipe. I'm just going to take my vice grip clamp and attach it to my jig. I'm then going to take another vice grip and I'm going to clamp the 1/8 inch round to the pipe and just bend it around to make a loop. For our second piece, we've marked 5.5 inches down from each end of our 3/8 inch round. I'm going to bend that around, then exaggerate the bend a little bit further. Starting from the other end, we're going to do the same thing. To make a triangle. In the classic camp way, it's dinner time. Let's get back to the campsite and see what's cooking.
Just like today's projects, our meal is a fairly simple one. Our hanging pot has got fajita chili. Our large Dutch oven is Mexican cornbread. And the dessert in our smaller Dutch oven is a raspberry crunch. Join us next time when we make our outdoor fireplace, which we're going to use as a lesson in basic stick welding.
If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to our channel. 8FD Designs works out of 32,000 square feet of building on 3.5 acres in Decatur, Texas. If you want to learn more about our events, our store, our classroom, or want to come by for a shop tour, come and see us in Decatur, Texas.